Hello and welcome my friends. Today I have something different for you. We're not going into any deck profiles or test hands. Obviously if you're interested in that, check out my channel. But today we're going to have a bit of a discussion. Obviously the tins are coming up. Wait and maybe subscribe to see me unboxing a bunch of them. It's going to be interesting, it's going to be wild, but with the tins on the horizon, there have been a few questions with, well, where's the ban list? What about the cards that are in the tins? Are some of them going to get banned? Limited? Semi-limited? Well, we have to find out. And, well, actually finding out, well, we have to wait till Konami tells us because that's just how it goes. But let's have a bit of a discussion about a few cards here. And this is going to be a bit of a longer video. And, well, let me know in the comments down below what you think about, yeah, these ban list changes. What you want to see, what you expect to see. Well, there's a lot and let's get into it. Okay, first we're going to come to the World Championship winning deck, DLink. And I know many people have been calling for many different hits against this deck. But first and foremost, please, my friends, remember, just because it won Worlds doesn't actually mean shit. Like, look at the Worlds format. That's a hypothetically made up bogus format that doesn't exist anywhere else. It's TCG OCG mixed, it was played for one fucking weekend, and it doesn't exist in reality. Like, basing our fucking ban list in the TCG on the results of this Worlds format is insane. It would be the same as like, oh yeah, in Master Duel they do this and that, we need to hit this card in the TCG. Like, that can make sense, but looking at the results and like that, it's a bit of a stretch, my friends. Especially if you consider the final could have gone like either way, right? Depending on draw and so on and so on. Would we have called for Sword Soul hits now? No, definitely not. So the argument DLink needs to get hit because of Worlds, sorry, that just doesn't fly with me. Maybe you have some good arguments, but let me know in the comments down below because I don't see that yet. Are we going to hit DLink because the deck would get too strong if we hit everything else? Maybe that's an angle. And we have, well, at least I have prepared a few cards here that people have been talking about. The powerful spell cards, Quick Launch and Chaos Base. Hitting these, putting these to semi or limited, I think banning them is a bit silly. Would hit the deck's consistency a bit, right? I think that's something that we could talk about. Banning Striker Dragon. Obviously, Mr. World Champion Joshua Schmidt has said that we could ban Striker Dragon, which I think is, I mean, it was a bit of a bait, but I think that's not the way to go. I think Striker Dragon at 1 right now is completely fine. Before the Bestials, I was like, oh, we could put Striker actually back to 2. But with the Bestials now in the game, I think Striker at 1 is completely fine. The cool thing about DLink, it was like such a balls to the walls combo deck, and it still can do something like that, but actually it has become more of a like bestial control deck, setting up with Regained and Magnamut and Druid Worm, actually using Baldrake, etc recurring, right? It's actually not that oppressive in the sense of its end boards, which it still can do, right? But I think it has become a bit more hampered throughout the years. Does that mean weaker? Well, that's a different topic. Taking a look at the Bestials, people have been saying, okay, let's put like all of them at 1, which I think that's way too much. I think something similar, I think Sarania was at 3, but I think something similar was at Worlds. I have to recheck, but I think that's too much. I think hitting Druid Worm at Magnamut to 1, I think that's completely fine. I think we could put Magnamut also to 2 and leave all of these unlimited, or like Magnamut and Lubellion to 2. I think something like this could be fine. It's not overly punishing because in most cases people would have played only one Druid Worm in the first place, so that's not even that big of a hit. And obviously putting Magnamut and Lubellion at 2 means that the resource recursion is not that insane. And I think Saranier obviously is really strong, but I think he's a bit more on the chill side in comparison. So I think this would be an okay way to hit the deck. but like I could also see something like that if you want, like 1 Magnamut and then keep 3 Lubellion, because well, we'll have a bit of a balanced trade-off. Again, I don't want to hit Dragon Link overly hard. I think something like this would be fine. Wouldn't destroy the deck, but would give it a bit of a laugh tap. And we have to remember, pretty unrealistic that they're going to ban any of these cards, considering the fact that they are going to be reprinted in the tins. So that's that. Coming to look at the Dragon Rulers, obviously we already have, no, not this one. These two, Burner and Tempest at 1. And I think we can just bump these all at 1. I think we could put all of them at 3 even. Maybe that's a bit too much, but I think we could even like start doing something like this, right? These to 1, from 0 to 1, these from 1 to 2. That's how Konami usually does it, of course, right? And I think no one would care, but obviously if you want to be on the safer side, then put all of them at 1. Keep these at 1, put these to 1. I think that's obviously fine. Obviously there are leaks about a new rank 7 XZ Dragon Ruler card. That's going to be lovely. Maybe they want to be careful, right, with Dragon Link being potentially one of the decks that's going to get hit less, and then giving them access to the Dragon Rulers, which I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think these cards are playable in Dragon Link, really. None of them, like none of the 2 here have ever seen play, besides maybe in Dragoonity decks. Well, anyway. Talking about another dragon, Red Rose Dragon and Globulb, right, like tuners that were mostly banned or limited in Red Rose case. I think Red Rose can at least come back to 2, if not even to 3. I think that's completely fine. Like, he was abused in Dragon Link decks really with Hulky Fibrax, but Hulk is gone, so what is he going to do? I don't think there's like any problem with that. And the Rose Dragon deck, right? Pure Rose Dragon with plants or something like that. Like, what is their name? Akiza decks are completely in shambles anyway. So, like, I don't know. At least put it to 2. Actually could come back to 3, like, no questions asked. Globulb, obviously it's a bit interesting, bit strong. But we don't have Chaos Ruler. We don't have anything like that, so I think it's way less problematic, and I think we could put it to 1, could put it to 3. I don't think anyone would really play it, besides obviously Giga Chat tier players. But even then, it's like a dark, so it can't be even used to go into like Natural Beast or whatever nonsense you are thinking of. So yeah, I think Globulb can come to 1, no problem. Same with Harp Horror. Like, what the hell is this card doing on the ban list? Like, what? Silly. Let's talk about a few powerful spell cards. People have been having issues with Triple Tactics and Prosperity. Obviously, not very similar, but Triple Tactics, I think, like, read this card. It, like, combines 3 banned cards. Or actually, Change of Heart is not banned anymore, but yeah, it's actually pretty problematic in some sense, right? But is it a necessary evil that we still need at this point in the game? I think yes. I think as busted as this card is, right, it's pretty strong. Like, Pot of Greed effect after getting hand trapped, or like ripping their hand. Like, imagine you go first, their opponent hand traps you, they go -1 in that sense, and then you rip a card out of their hand as well. So like, they start with 2 less cards in their hand, and you still kind of got to like establish your board, unless the hand trap completely like screwed you over, unless it's some disgusting bullshit like this one here, the D-Shifter. So I think, yeah, it's pretty strong, but I think it's still a necessary evil at this moment in the game. So I think Triple Tactics can stay at 3, because also with Thrust being in the game, people already are playing like 3 Thrust, 1 Talents or something like that. So I think either we have it at 3 or we ban it, and I don't think this card needs to be banned at all, so just leave it. Prosperity, another card that you could thrust into, but obviously that's not what most people do. Prosperity is obviously a bit of an issue because it just makes like nearly any deck that can play it, which is a lot, like absolutely consistency monstrous, because like looking through 6 cards, picking your 1 card starter, getting to circular or whatever else, obviously that's pretty strong and pretty good. I mean, that's why it's a expensive card that sees a lot of play. So now the question is, what do we do with it? The OCG I think has it at 1, Master Duel has it at 1, people are predicting it to go to 1 in the TCG. Personally, I'm conflicted with this card because on one hand, yes, meta decks become more consistent with it. But there are also rogue decks or like lower tier decks that kinda need to see their 1-card starter, their starters, because the rest of their engine doesn't really do too much, right? Like Kashtiera, like they don't need Pot of Prosperity really. I don't think Kashtiera actually plays it right now. I'll have to double check, but they don't need it. They have 21 card starters or 20 ways to start their plays. They don't need to search for that 1 card. But on the other side, the argument is also like in game 2-3, you are searching your blowout cards, your board breakers or floodgates. And that's obviously an issue because their strengths are kind of justified due to how hard it is to access them, right? Continuous trap cards aren't really all that searchable in most decks. And like board breakers, okay, you can thrust into some of them, but overall you still need to kind of draw them. You aren't really searching board breakers. So Prosperity giving easy access to that and kind of ruining like the second and third game because, well, yeah, that's just how it works sometimes, is a bit of an issue. So I'm kind of conflicted with this. I really like it in like the lower tier decks, really getting access to like your Mikanko Ohime or whatever, right? Your really important 1-carders. But on the other side, like, well, like Prosperity into, I don't know, Evenly Matched or Lightning Storm, that stuff is not fun. Or like Floodgates. So I think putting it to 1 is something that we can kind of live with, but yeah. I'm kind of okay with it at 3, but I see that reasonable it should be at 1. It's just a bit too much, no? Then looking at the Runick cards, we have Hugin and Fountain, and obviously Tip. These are like the strongest one, and with Hugin obviously enabling Fountain. And people have been calling, I mean, Fountain is currently at 2, which is a bit, it's completely ridiculous. Like 2? What the fuck, Konami, man. Like, I am not that opposed to putting cards to 2. This is something that you might see on this list. But obviously some cards that are so easily searchable, putting them at 2 is just ridiculous. So we can make arguments about something like this. 1 Fountain, so if you get rid of it, great. They don't have access to it 1 more. And semi-limiting Tip. So overall the deck goes down a bit. And also Tip into Hugin, into Fountain is not that problematic or not that reasonable like anymore. But you could also like semi-limit Tip and put Fountain maybe to 3 and ban Hugin. This is something I think Puck said before, and I kind of like this idea. Because now you need to kind of hard draw into Runick Fountain. You need to play, maybe you play some Ancient Fairy Dragon or Terraforming-esque cards to give you access to that. And it's just way harder to get into this powerful field spell. But you keep, like, I mean, maybe we could even, no. Tip to 2, I think, still something. Like, we still need a bit of a hit, but I think this is just a better way, because I think the Runick deck in itself is really powerful. Just the Fountain makes it a bit problematic at times. So I could see something like this maybe, Fountain to 1, Tip to 2. But I'm kind of interested how Runick decks like are going to function without Hugin. Like, obviously Hugin itself is not problematic, of course, but Hugin instant access to Fountain, that's something. So I like to copy a Park here with his idea that this could be pretty interesting. Next one, Miscellaneousarus. I think currently at 1. Dino's got a few cards here and there this year, and I'm not a big Dino fan, but what is it going to do? At least put it to 2. I think maybe to 3 would be a bit unreasonable, but putting it to 2, I don't see a big issue with that currently. I think we can let the dinos play a bit more. Then MX Saber Invoker. Obviously, I mean, an Earth Warrior, Beast Warrior from your deck. This card obviously means that 2 level 3s, like any 2 level 3s, it doesn't even have to be warriors, give you instant access to Isolde and all that kind of stuff, which is interesting. What are warriors currently doing? Like, is there any like warrior deck that I'm kind of missing? So like, in all honesty, like looking at the like warriors that we can search with this, the only thing that this actually does, right, is turn 3 level 3s into instant like Isolde or whatever, right? It's just, I don't really see the problem with that. Maybe you know something else here, but I think this card can come back to 1 and maybe give warriors a bit more support. Warriors, obviously, they have so much support. And by the way, before anyone, like, I have not forgotten about Infernoble Knights, like, don't at me, but this card says Earth Warrior or Beast Warrior. The Infernoble Knights are fire, so I don't see any problematic things that this card does. Just give some love back to like warrior piles or whatever. Like they have so many of their cards already at 1 or whatever, like just give them something. Also, like emptying the ban list is something I think we should like always try to look into. Spright cards. So Spright, obviously, like Spright pure as a deck is well, there are actually, by the way, starters already semi-limit, so that's that. But Spright as a pure deck, they kinda don't do too much anywhere. Like, you already play them with like Runick Spright, Furhire Spright, Life Twin, I guess. What's the other one? I mean, Naturia is kinda like Naturia Spright is kinda yeah. So what do we do? If we hit the Spright engine, or like want to hit Spright as a pure deck, which I think is not necessary, we would hit blue, right? Because blue for the Spright deck in itself is, I think, the most or more important card out of these 3. If we want to hit Spright as an engine, I think we hit Jet and Starter and like leave blue alone. But I don't think Spright is doing all too much troublesome stuff right now. Like I think we could put Starter to 1 because like putting it at 2 is a bit silly. But I think Spright is not like all too problematic right now. I mean, the question is like after what we're going to do to these motherfuckers out down here, like could Spright then come back and take the vacuum in the metagame? I don't think so. Like, bro, like they have so many issues right now. But yeah, I think Spright, like maybe put Starter really to 1 because like semi-limiting is just, this card is searchable. Semi-limiting doesn't do anything. But I don't know. I think we could also keep it at 2 and put Jet to 2, which like both of these things don't do anything. So I think this is fine. Like if we want to hit Spright, like just semi-limit Jet as well. But I don't think Spright actually needs any hit right now. Gazelle is at 1, and why is that? Putting it back to 3 might be a bit too much. But the deck already gets like enough access to it. I mean, it's a Cyber's card, right? Searching Cyber's cards is like the easiest thing ever. So I think we could just put it back to 2 to just give it a bit of a shove. But honestly, like Salamangreats, what are they going to do? What? Like even with the new support, they don't do anything. They should have put it to 2 or 3 like before the Salamangreat support came out. But I mean, Konami and releasing ban lists on time is just, that's just not something that's realistic. So I think we could just put it back to 2. Honestly, put it back to 3. I don't fucking care. But yeah, I think that's a push that you can do like without any care in the world about what Salamangreat is going to do. Next thing, people have been arguing about Sun Avalon and Rikka. which, like, obviously it's like not a terrible deck, but it's like how many people play it? Like 5 in the world, and like these 5 top events sometimes with it, especially in Europe, of course. It was also brought to Worlds, which again like is a very cringe and niche format that we should not actually like spend any like words on. So people have been asking for hits, and I mean, the thing is, like, do you hit the Sun Avalon package? I think the Rikka's cards are like absolutely fine, but you could also look into that direction. But like, I personally don't think we should hit any of that. I think maybe we could like limit Jasmine. People have been asking to ban her because obviously, as you read here, like you can do whatever like you want with plant cards, which in the future someday could be problematic. Yes. But like honestly, we're talking about plants here. Not wanting to discredit like Rikka Sun Avalon as a like powerful deck, but it's like right now we're not at that point yet. We're not like, this is not LP, my friends. This is not summon any fucking dragon out of the deck. We're talking about plants. So I think we need to like keep it down a notch. Yes, the deck is pretty powerful, and yes, some of the end board stuff is maybe not that fun. But I think we could just maybe like do silly stuff like that. Maybe limit it all if you really want to do it. But I just like maybe limit Jasmine because she's obviously the most powerful generic card. Like in the plant setting. I don't think we can ban her because as far as I know of the deck, I'm not an expert, yes, shocking, but as far as I know from my limited research is like she combines the 2 archetypes, right? She is the one that is bringing the Rikka with the Sun Avalon together. So hitting that would like really hurt the deck a lot because then the 2 archetypes aren't that easily meshed together. Maybe I'm misunderstanding something, but so I personally think a hit would be too, like a ban would be too harsh. Second of all, I think it's not warranted yet. And next one is like, I think like come on, they're playing plants, just, bro. Nah. Next one, Purrely. Purrely, obviously, again, they have been hit pretty harshly, maybe, or a bit too early with the last list. Hitting them again might be a bit too rough, but I mean, Purrely cards aren't really like the peak of fun and intuitive gameplay anyway. So we, like, I have Sleepy Memory and Noir here. I would like to do this, but that's too much. People are playing 2 Noirs. Let's give her the Ariseheart. Her? I think her. Let's give her the Ariseheart treatment and just put her to 1. So like if you get rid of 1, like they aren't making a second one. I think that's the hit, which just give it just a little smack. It's not stomping the cats or whatever they are. Griffin, I mean they have wings, whatever, like weird cat thingies. It's not killing them, it's not putting them to the doctor for the pill. And then we have like Sleeping Memory, which is obviously one of the better ones. I mean, we could hit, what is the other one? So, I mean, we could go as far as banning Delicious Memory, which I think that's just way too over the top. I think like putting Noir to 1 and Sleepy Memory maybe to 2. Maybe that's just, again, we don't want to kill the deck, we just want to give like a few smacks, right? That's why we have not like done too much to Dragon Link. And that's why we aren't killing the plant deck either. Hopefully, like Runick players, Joshua Schmidt obviously is not hating us too much with this hit. Maybe the Runick hit is maybe a bit too much. I don't know, at least in comparison. But wait till we get to the absolute cringe bottom feeder cards that are coming up soon. Now about a few cards that are on the ban list. Simorgh. Why? Barrier Statue is not a problem, and I mean, Flu is a very cringe deck, but we're going to hit Flu indirectly later on, so I think we could put Simorgh back. If there's like any problematic stuff that Simorgh does, please let me know. I mean, like obviously special summon a winged beast monster from hand or deck could be something in the future, but Winged Beast monsters, like, bro, it's like, of course you can get to Mist Valley Apex Avian, which, like, obviously is a 1 per chain Omni negates, but I mean, come on. I mean, it's only an Omni negate with 4 cards on field, by the way, so that's also something, but I think that might be the only thing that we could be, like, conscious about Simorgh, but then, like, these decks would need to play like Avian in their deck, and that's like kinda a brick. I mean, he summons from hand as well, I think, so maybe that's the concern people are having with putting Simorgh back, but I mean, maybe it's a bit too much. Maybe we could bring him back, maybe not. Personally, I think, hey, why not? Let's try it. And again, Flu as the only like wind and like what Winged Beast deck. I think we have nothing to fear really with these fucking birds. Next one, Ancient Fairy Dragon. He can't just stay here in the unlimited section because like the difference between 1 or 3 for extra deck monsters is like kinda irrelevant in the first place in most cases, right? Unless it's like combo pieces or very key boss monsters. So I think like Ancient Fairy Dragon at 1 or at 3, it's just the same. Let's just get rid of more names on the ban list or limited section. I think that's completely fine. Next one, he can also stay down here. Herald of Orange Light was a love tap hit to tier back in the day, or like half a year ago. No, more than half a year ago. Time passes fast, my friends. Herald of Orange Light obviously can send any Ishizu card from hand as a monster negate, hand trap. So that obviously was kinda silly. So you could like pitch Kelbeck or Agido in your first turn, negate something and mill and do all these plays. So back then it made sense to hit this card. I think, what was it, to 1? Yeah, I think you just can come back to 3. Like, who's going to play the 3 Heralds with the 4 Ishizu cards? I'm no mathematician, but I think that's just not a worthwhile ratio to play. So I think Herald can come back easy peasy. Now let's get to these piss cards here. Kashtiera, so Ariseheart, rest in piss. Fenrir, rest in piss. Unicorn from can just stay at 3, no need to semi-limit, and I think all these other cards can stay. Okay, now for the reasoning. So first of all, this card is just terrible card design. Who the fuck thought this was a nice idea to make this card? At 1, Kashtiera obviously kinda cares with him being at 1, but it's still too much. So for the Kashtiera deck, that would be my hit. Fenrir, sadly for Kashtiera players, he's just too problematic, and I think it's just not good for the game to have Fenrir in it. He is just generically splashable in every deck because he does so much. Okay, so first you get a free body on board. Great. He searches himself as well, so you don't even lose hand advantage. So you have another copy to discard or maybe use like in turn 2, 3, whatever. Who cares? So you don't even lose card advantage. You get a free level 7 body on board. That's already nice, but that's not enough. Of course it's not enough. Because the next thing it does is, well, in your opponent's turn, or like with battle phase, you can just get free monster removal. So going first, you set him up and you can even leave him be if you don't need to use him for anything else. Going second, it's just free board clearing. So he can just be put into any deck as a 3-off, and well, yeah, who cares, right? It's just, it does too much. And sadly for the Kashtiera deck, he also does like everything for the deck. I mean, Unicorn is incredibly cool and incredibly strong, but Unicorn at least is only usable in Kashtiera decks, or like maybe Kashtiera Tearlaments, as you probably have seen on my channel already. Because it searches Kashtiera spell cards which work with Kashtiera cards like Tier Kash in the Tearlaments case, but it can't be used in any other deck, right? It's still a powerful card, of course, like incredibly insane, like banishing cards from your opponent's extra deck. But anyway, obviously Fenrir is just an abusive card that is just seeing too much play. We could do something like that. By the way, we could put Fenrir to 1. Personally, I think that's fine, because then at least he doesn't recur himself. So people who could still put Fenrir into whatever deck they want, but they wouldn't get Fenrir, search Fenrir, and like have 5 cards still in hand, and have the free discard plus this very useful utility card. And I guess for the Kashtiera deck, for them having 1 Fenrir is fine, because they can summon a Fenrir with Shangri-Ira and like still do their stuff even without a Ariseheart. So personally, I would love to ban it, but I think putting Fenrir to 1 in the end is the more reasonable idea, to not completely nuke a deck and like still remove him from too many lists playing just randomly 2 Fenrir to, well, make profit. And as we're talking about this Pankratops, I think in a world where Fenrir walks around and is used everywhere, like if they don't hit Fenrir, or like semi-limit Fenrir for whatever reason, like 2 or 3 makes no difference, by the way. I think like we could put Pankratops back to 2. I think 3 is absolutely insane, but again, if we have Fenrir at multiple copies, then Pankratops at multiple copies is also completely fine. Right now, like I think we could keep both of them at 1, but if they argue that Fenrir can come back, then like Pankratops can also be back. Personally, I think just 2, it's fine. With these hits to Kashtiera, I think they can get Unicorn back to 3. I think that's fine. Personally, I mean, I have no issue with this. I think Kashtiera players also wouldn't really care all too much. And especially like considering the fact that we want to have Kashtiera gone, because like they were probably active for like as long as like Tearlaments and Spright, while being a worse deck, or like a more unfun deck, I'd argue. So I think we could like just leave Unicorn and maybe give them like Unicorn back next list, but like Fenrir to 1, Ariseheart to 0, and I think the spells, as good as they are and as toxic as they can be, I think that's just fine. Because with Shangri-Ira, 1 Fenrir, I think like that's kinda it, like for Kash. Next, we come to tier best deck, Tearlaments strongest, Kashtiera weakest. Don't mind me if I do. Kid, come back, please, mom. Please come back from the store with the milk. Yes, and yeah, okay. And for all the tier haters, I would be willing to make this trade-off. I receive Kid Kalos, you receive a Guido ban. So only 3 Ishizus are in the game, and I think that's fine. I personally think we could just leave this and no one would care. But I know people are hating on the best deck just because they can't mill 5. Search Purrely, summon Purrely, mill 8. It's just a skill issue. But honestly, I think this would be a worthwhile trade deal. But obviously that's not what Konami is going to do. But Konami is full of cowards. They fear the strongest deck, the best deck ever made. Let's go. But yeah, like I obviously this is discussion, not prediction, because prediction, like what, like Konami is making like 4 changes on the ban list and then they call it a day. You know how they go. Unless it's about tier, then they like do 4 changes just to the extra deck. But yeah, I think this would be a worthwhile trade offer, right? I think we can all agree that the Ishizu cards are the problem. Like Tearlaments with Tier Danger or something like that was obviously strong, don't get me wrong, but with the Ishizu cards obviously went completely bananas. So I think logically speaking, we should just remove the Ishizu cards and give Tier their cards back, and I think we would all be fine. Maybe not give all the tier cards back to 3, but I think like if we take Agido back, then we could pack Kid Kalos. Maybe if we put 1 Shuffler back, then we can give them back like maybe a Sharon, because Sharon, I think obviously it's enables the rank 4 stuff, and with the Revolution Synchron and allows more synchro plays, but comparable to Harvness or Purrely, with Purrely being a rank 2 or level 2. obviously is weaker. So I think we can, like through the iterations of Banlist, we could go into that direction where we remove the Ishizu cards back, remove the Ishizu cards and give back the tier cards. But this would be something like if Christmas was tomorrow, like come on, man, give Kit back, man. Yeah. Okay, next cards. We're looking at Branded Fusion, and like Branded Fusion, like banning it would be interesting. I mean, like how do branded players how would they play? I think they like have so much support throughout the ages that they still could play the game, obviously. But like let's just give it to one. As such, like they can't like saggy hand draw it or something like that. As such, they need to play the search cards, which like maybe gives the deck a bit of a slap. I think just having like it at 3 like right now is just a bit unreasonable. We could maybe talk about like maybe semi-limiting it and like semi-limiting branded opening and like reducing like consistency like that. But I think just playing like putting Branded Fusion to 1 is completely fine. Look at Master Duel, look at OCG. The deck is still completely functional as far as I know. So that's that. By the way, talking about some other cards branded players used, Gimmick Puppet of Piss, no, just go. In my mind, I think, I hope Gimmick Puppet players, or player, that one guy probably who plays it somewhere, I hope for them this is not too bad, but people have been also calling for like Raw's Disciple being banned or something like that. No, like why the fuck does Branded like have these cards in their archetype that just summon monsters to your opponent's field? Like what? That's on Branded the same way it is on Hulk that these tuners were overtuned. So like what? That's just silly. So I don't see them like hitting the or what's the name? The fusion, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, whatever. I don't think they're going to hit that one, so let's just get rid of the Gimmick Puppet, and while you're at it, get rid of Iblee. Get rid of these cards, man. Like, these cards here, why are they in the game? I thought we were, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Obviously, the idea of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like, I play so that you can't play. Sure. But I think that's just the wrong idea. We should move to, I try to kick you and you try to kick back, and we're kicking each other in the face, right? We're having a boxing match. While we are accruing resources. That's why I think Spright, Tier, or like the Bestial Dragon Link, like sure they're a bit of an issue against some other decks, but that's why I like them so much, because they aren't overwhelming their opponent with like 10 negates or floodgate locks. They're trying to like give a kick here, give a slap there, and as such they like out-resource their opponent, which I think is a way healthier way to play or like to look into the future of the game, comparable to what the hell is this. So yeah, just get rid of these cards. Another banned card actually that I think we could put back is Drident. I mean, we don't need to, it can stay banned, but I mean, what is Zodiac going to do? Obviously there's like the Zodiac Zeus Turbo stuff, which is like kind of just unfun or just a bit silly, but I think we could give it back. I mean, there are just too many Zodiac cards banned, which, I mean, it makes some sense, right? It's just like XZ onto XZ onto XZ, like who made that up, man? But I think that's just fine. Put it back to 1. Hey, let's have some fun. Now coming to another like meta deck, Labrynth. And with Labrynth, it's difficult because I plan on maybe giving a bit of a tap, to the Floodgates. So we should keep in mind that Labrynth, and I think it's just really weird. People have been molding it. Oh no, we can't hit the Floodgates. How am I going to play my Labrynth, my Eldritch decks? Oh no. No, just play them, and like if they suck, they suck. What? That's the option for everyone else, right? It's like there are so many decks that suck. Just like fess up with it. Like what am I going to say? I mean, obviously Tearlaments strongest, but like they banned all my cards, they limited all my cards. Am I going to be like wah? No, I'm going to just continue playing. So especially with the logic of like, oh, I can't play my Labrynth deck with like Eradicator gone or D-Barrier gone or like all these other floodgates gone, come on, don't be fucking silly. So I think the overall logic of Labrynth players like crying out when we touch their fucking pretty floodgates, while they still can like recur themselves again and again, hand loop you and do all of that silly nonsense, I think they should just, yeah, I don't know, shut the fuck up. Like, the moment you can introduce like healthy and fun gameplay stuff, then we can talk. But the moment you just set these cards where like, well, we can't play the game, both of us, that's just not it. And now they're going to tell me, oh, blah, 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 combo player, blah, 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 they're setting up 20 negates. Which deck sets up 20 negates nowadays? We have Ariseheart pass. We have, I mean, Rikka Sunavalon, okay, but who plays that? Like 3 people. We have Noir set 2 pass. What else do we have? I mean, we have Runick just throwing spells at you, but it's like Runick is like also kind of a soft combo deck, but it's also not like 20 negates. It's like pops and stuff like that. It's like, who is like who are they talking about? What deck are they talking about? Like Dragon Link with Link Cross and stuff that doesn't exist like for like 4 years now, 3 whatever. Drytron or like, so yeah, these combo decks that these people scream out about, they just don't realistically exist right now. Yes, they could come back into the game, of course. And I'm not going to say that there is no combo deck, but there's a difference between like we combo and set up 2 negates or a pop and a negate or whatever. And we combo and have like VFD lock, right? Or Herald of Ultimateness. Like there's a big difference between just comboing, because like all combo decks aren't made the same, right? Are you going to tell me like a combo deck is always the same and they're always unfun, oppressive, and like create single player games? No. And your floodgates aren't going to stop them. They're just going to stop the player from playing the game. And well, then why are you even sitting at the table? So all in all, this was like kind of Floodgates and Labrynth in one, but I think we have to talk about them in conjuncture, because Labrynth players are obviously the ones that are abusing Floodgates the most. But obviously, as we talked about with Prosperity, there are people actually siding like some of these outrageous cards and then putting them in their main deck, but in their side deck, and siding them in 2-3 to then do some shenanigans. Obviously, not all Floodgates are made the same, right? We have Shadow Imprisoning Mirror, which obviously as a Tearlaments player, it's to dog shit. And then we have like stuff like this, which is also like against branded or against like fusion decks or whatever. Obviously, some of these cards hurt, but they are not generic, right? There's a difference between the negate dark monster effects in the graveyard or field. Yes, that is a bit interesting and should not exist, but it's just not flat out no monster effects. It's not flat out you can only summon twice. I think some of these cards that is just too generic, and like if you side in a Floodgate as a countermeasurement towards a top deck, then we can at least talk about like some skill expression in deck building. Is it still something that should exist? That's a different discussion or a different topic. But the fact that these Floodgates here that are currently played, that are way too generic, they just shouldn't exist. And as such, I think for Labrynth, I think the Coup Clock, I personally would ban it or put it to 1, because it's the one that enables the hand loop strategy, if I have that correctly in my mind. So I think that would be fine. Or putting like Big Welcome to 2, I think is not to 2. Big Welcome to 2, Clock to 1, or I mean Clock to 1 or to 3 actually I think makes no difference, but maybe like something like this, semi-limiting Lady and Big Welcome. Not the biggest hit, I would argue, but then we get rid of these piss cards that should have never been invented in the first place. D-Barrier, yeah, sure. Oh, you just play links. Yeah, not every deck can play links. Or get to links. Eradicator. Oh, well, they need to sacrifice a monster. Shut the... Bro. anti-spell, Teekaboo, like get rid of that nonsense. Summon limit I think is bad. I should also just shouldn't exist. I think we should just get rid of them. Rivalry, where's it? Gozen, Macrocosmos, stuff like that's just not alright. Mistake, well, but like in the end we would just ban like kind of all floodgates. That's where we could go into. I think, yeah, I think it was also Joshua Schmidt who made a ban list like months ago, like also on the site I think, where he banned all cards that had floodgate-esque effects. And I mean, reasonable, but the thing is, my friends, there's a big difference between floodgates that can just be generically searched with thrust, or just spammed into your trap deck, and everyone can play them and set them and create unfun gameplay. And cards like Darklaw, or like Darklaw and Ariseheart, right? Both are like cards that are key or like linked to a archetype. You can't really play them in other archetypes because they're just not accessible to them. Ariseheart is obviously like 20 times better than a fucking Darklaw, but like these cards, like at least their decks revolve around them, and like they're a key strategy to them. And you can hit the deck then to make these floodgates like less powerful, less obnoxious, and less reliable. If we have all of these cards here, which like in the end they all do the same, right? Like there is no difference between these cards in some sense, because they limit just the amount of plays you can do, if at all, right? I mean, some of these just say, okay, summon one monster, and if you can't go from there, then you're just screwed. And some of these just say you can't play the game at all. Eradicator versus Runick, see you next fucking year. Dimension Barrier against like Tearlaments, or what is it? Like Purrely. What else do we have? Obviously branded, right? That's just okay. Yeah, you can't play the game. Wow, great thing. Like I personally don't even use these cards, even though I have all of them, because I think it's just like people say, oh yeah, I need them to win, bro. Just get good. Like, like what? Are you going to, like, that's the same logic. It's like, I'm going to cheat on a test or on a run in a competition just because I'm not as good as the other, or because, well, oh, they start first. No, if you use these trap cards, you have to start first, because otherwise you can't set them and activate them. So if you go first, then, oh yeah, my deck can't go as explosive as them going first. Well, maybe then just don't play a shitty deck. I mean, like if you want to win with your fucking tier 25 deck against the meta deck, then you're just lost, right? That's the same line of arguments if like you go to the, maybe we shouldn't go there with that analogy, but again, it's like if you say, oh yeah, I want to like compete at the Olympics, but I want to have a chance to win, so I should have a gun to shoot everyone who's running in front of me. It's like, your logic is inherently flawed, right? Just because you pick a worse deck or because you are a worse player, you don't have any right to win. You don't have any right to win in a fucking game. Like, the better player with the better deck should win the game. If they fuck up, or if you play well, that's something else. But you shouldn't just say, oh yeah, I need to go into an event and I should have a chance to beat Joshua Schmidt, because, well, that's just how the game works. I should be able to win, and as such, these cards enable me to do just that. No, you shouldn't win. Like, what? You should go fucking to the fucking treadmill and read Yu-Gi-Oh cards and pump Yu-Gi-Oh cards on the bench and stuff like that. You should train and get better. You shouldn't need to play these cards. Play better decks, be a better player, and then you go from there. It's like, what? Also, the argument is obviously completely silly, because you don't need floodgates to play against better players, because how often in your life are you even playing against better players, right? Like, you only play them like on X% chance on a big event in the first round, right, where everyone's like kind of thrown together. So that's that. But only then, if you are worse like even with Floodgates, you won't get to the top cuts of YCSs. Like, that's just not going to fly. And that's it. Otherwise, you are playing against players who are just as bad as we all are, right? We are all not pro players. We are all just here for fun. And you're just using like nuclear weapons on a friendly sparring match on the kitchen table or at your locals, right? There is like maybe, yeah, sure, there's like skill level difference, but does that warrant like using these unfun cards? No, it doesn't. So I would argue it's completely unethical by the Geneva Conventions to play these cards. And we can talk about like all the other floodgates that are in the game. But I think at least we should hit some of the more atrocious ones. Macrocosmos and Ariseheart on legs, right? All of that stuff. Tikaboo and these fuckers here. It's just why? Like, come on, man. And we can obviously argue, oh yeah, we put them back to 1 or something like that. Or Konami will never hit them. Yeah, sure, Konami will never hit them. Like, why should they? They want their game to be as fucking toxic of a mess as possible. Sadly. But yeah, I at least hope we can hit Eevee and D-Barrier because I think they're the most outrageous ones because as like normal traps, they can be searched with Thrust, which is like absolutely ludicrous. But yeah, these other cards, they should also not exist because like against so many decks, they're just instant match winners. Or not match winners because because what does it mean to have these cards in your deck, right? Okay, you go into game number 1, you set your 5 and pass, and then you flip over all these floodgates. You know what they're going to side in the next decks, in the next duels? They're going to put in their Lightning Storms, Harpies, evenly matched. Like, are we going to have some fun duels? No, because it's like, okay, did I draw Backrow Removal or not? Is that the game that we want to have? No. And obviously the next argument is then, oh yeah, but if I don't play Backrow, then I need to play like these like monster removal cards, which is like also Lightning Storm evenly and Dark Ruler and like triple tactics maybe even, but I think at least at that point we are like semi-playing the game and we're not just flipping Backrow no or not. So I think like Labrynth doesn't need too big of a hit if we hit Floodgates. And again, I think these ones need to go absolutely with Thrust in the game. And these other ones should have never been printed. But hey, you know how Konami rolls. Talking about some other absolutely degenerate cards. First, Droll and Blockbird. I think the idea to have lingering floodgate effects, whoever came up with that actually needs to be put down. Obviously, just in the game. So yeah, have fun. I mean, Droll at least is just miles fairer than a D-Shifter. So I think Droll, I think it's a necessary evil. I would love to see a world where this doesn't exist, but I think Droll can absolutely stay at 3. D-Shifter though, like rest and fucking piss that card. Obviously the argument is like, oh, who's going to use that card? Oh, only Flu and Kash players are going to use it. And after these hits, wow, there's no Kash. Just shut up. Shut up. Just because no one is playing a card doesn't mean it's fine, right? Are we going to wait till the card becomes a problem again? Oh, come on, man. Just don't use these silly arguments. The card should, like, if Konami, if, like, the player base, if everyone, or, like, anyone can like, discover that a card is problematic, even if it's not used right now, then it should just not be there, right? Look at the ban list right now. There are cards banned that, even if they would be unbanned, wouldn't be problematic right away because like they are just part of funky FDKs. But we don't want these in the game. Just why do we have FDK on fucking standby phase, Dimension Shifter? Why is that in the game? No. Obviously completely degenerate cards. Most decks need the graveyard. These cards here, they need absolutely to go. And I mean, these ones here, well, I think everyone can agree with that trap decks or like trap cards should go. And people then ask, okay, or say, okay, what about trap decks in this modern Yu-Gi-Oh, right? And then my point is like, we have trap decks. We had trap decks the last couple of years. We have Labrynth now. We have Eldritch now. We had Eldritch. These decks had like their own trap cards that did well. We don't need generic Floodgate trap cards to exist for a trap deck to exist. What even is a trap deck, my friends? A trap deck, Like, what is the trap deck? Do we have monster decks? Do we have spell decks? Not really. We have decks that use spell cards like Runick. We have decks that use monster cards like everything. And we have decks that use trap cards like Labrynth or Eldritch or Paleozoic or whatever else existed. We had all of that. Like, there is no generic trap deck. That's just nonsense. And in these archetypal decks, there are good trap cards. Like, Labrynth could play the game, obviously to a lesser extent, without like these stupid cards here. Same with Eldritch, right? It's just a silly argument, right? Then obviously if we remove these, Konami can actually print better trap cards. And if we remove these, like, I would be willing like to go down on these cards. I mean, evenly is a bit of a different topic, but like, if they get rid of these or like more floodgates, then we could also attack Backrow Removal more. But with these unfun garbage ass, piss ass, trash ass cards in the game, we need Backrow Removal because we actually want to play. So that's just silly. So if we hit these, we could put these to 1, right? So surely they are also thrustable, but I mean, that's a different topic. If Thrust should even be, I think Thrust is a bit of a silly card, but like, if you play Trap deck, then maybe they can't even use Thrust, because again, remember, Thrust needs the monster effect. So I think, like, if we hit the Floodgates, we could hit the Backrow Removal, and yeah, that's that. First of all, I just want to mention it again, fuck Dimension Shifter. And then, like, I guess Dark Ruler and Evenly Matched. They're a difficult topic. Like, Evenly Matched, obviously, just like Lightning Storm, attacks Backrow as well, because they just get rid of everything. So that's something, of course. But I mean, I think Evenly Matched is just a very silly card that should just not be in the game. And considering the fact that end boards have become arguably more fair, kinda, in recent times, I think cards like Evenly Matched, like, we can now talk about getting rid of them. Probably banning it, it's maybe a bit too much, but putting it to 1 could be a step into the right direction, although probably Konami will go semi-limit first, just like they did with Lightning Storm. And I think that's the way to go, right? If we hit these floodgates, then we can hit Backrow Removal of all types. And again, if we like hit decks that put up unfair or like just too oppressive end boards, then we can also get rid of Evenly, and maybe someday we can get rid of Dark Ruler no more. These cards, obviously, they have a downside to them, so at least they have that. But yeah, this sums up my ban list prediction, or wish list, whatever. I think hitting Hugin for the Runicks so that they don't get permanent access into Fountain. The Agido for Kid Carlos trade, which is my trade deal here. Pissing all over Kashtiera because we need to get rid of them. But at least they keep Fenrir, I would argue. That's like fine, even though the card is oppressive. But putting it at 1, at least remove it as a staple. Gimmick Puppet Lock, Iblee Lock, get rid of that. Same with these stupid thrust targets, especially turn 1, thrusting into these. Just silly, not to mention that they are just creating unfun gameplay experiences. Dimension Shifter, just why is this a thing? Standby phase, you can't even do anything. Dimension Shifter, go bleh. Especially with like Gamma, right? Gamma and Driver not being a thing anymore. You can't even like counter it. And then obviously these these trap cards, which like they should go, and because of that we have not hit Labrynth too hard, and because of that we have also hit semi-hit, right, these board breaker cards, or like spell back removal cards. We've given Dragon Ruler a bit of a laugh tap. Again, I don't think the world's result like are indicative of anything. Like obviously they showed that the deck can still perform it with like these cards at 1, but again the rest of the deck, like they played against Sword Soul in the final. Please remember that. Dragon Rulers come back. We could put them even to 2. Should be fine. Glow Up and Harp Horror as well as MX could come back, and I don't think they would cause any problems. Prosperity obviously is a bit of a interesting card, right? Again, like poorer deck, weaker decks can use it to at least play, right? It's not creating unfair stuff in any case, unless it's used to add one of these cards or these cards. But if we hit these, all of them, I think Prosperity can even be at a higher number of copies, but realistically speaking, one is fine. Small love tap to Rikka Sunavalon with Jasmine, similar for Noir and the Sleeping Memory. Maybe I'm overlooking something with Simorgh here. Maybe they can do something crazy, but I think let's just have some fun. Branded Fusion, long overdue, put that stuff to 1. Drident, maybe it can come back, well, we'll have to see. And as mentioned, right, the Ball Breaker stuff. Spright, I think, is fine right now. It's not doing too much, but maybe give it a bit of a tap. I mean, I could see like starter to 1, but like as long as we have Jet, we can search it anyway. So I think that's just a bit silly. I think we should just hit Jet a bit so that the non-pure Spright decks get a bit of a consistency dump, but who cares? Miscellaneousarus can come back anyway. Gazelle, same thing. Pankratops, I think, especially in a world where Fenrir is around, like that card is okay. Unicorn stays at 2 because why not? We have already dealt with Kashtiera, I think, reasonable enough. And again, as mentioned, the other hits. Cards like Red Rose Dragon or Herald of Orange Light can come back to 3, no questions asked. Same with Fairy Dragon, and even Fountain can go back from 2 to 3 if we hit Hugin and maybe hit Tip a bit. So overall, this was a very long video. Hopefully I was able to cut it down a bit into digestible length. But yeah, let me know what you think. Am I completely crazy? Am I completely biased as the Tearlaments enjoyer? Yes, Tearlaments strongest, Kashtiera weakest. Have a great day, my friends. We see each other in the near future, hopefully. Till then, stay safe. Bye-bye.